O'Neill and the federal government were both just the same. They were both big, fat, and out of control. And I thought that Tip O'Neill personified just about everything people hate about politics today. And that he is an exact opposite of President Reagan, and he's doing everything he can here in Congress to ruin Reagan's program, and I just don't think that's good for the country. It's one of the reasons that Congress is held in such disrepute by the public. I didn't come here to win a popularity contest among my peers. I came here to represent the people who voted for me, and those people are the same all over the country. They are extremely angry about the way the government is run, and they don't like it, and they want to change, and that's why they sent me here, and they sent so many other people.
Supposed to have invited the speaker into your district, and he turned you down. Is that true?
I did, Bob. I invited him twice over the 4th of July recess. Before the recess, I said, "Why don't you come and leave Washington for a change after 30 years, and come meet the people of America and see what they have to say about economics and why things are so bad, why they're so angry and upset over the lousy economy of this country. It might be very enlightening for you." Well, I never heard from him. Instead, I saw in the paper that he went up to Cape Cod and played golf. And on the previous recess, he took a big junket to New Zealand and Australia that U.S. News and World Report said cost taxpayers over $200,000.
Well, you should like stories about junketing, because a lot of people say that if Lester Wolf had spent less time junketing, he might not have lost to you.
Well, that's right. If he had paid attention to the people who elected him instead of thinking he was some sort of potentate traveling around the world, he'd have done a lot better. But he abused his office. He ripped the public off. He got just what he deserved.
People of the 6th District got what they deserve in you. Your credit to that congressional seat. And a lot of us have our eyes on you, John, and we're looking forward to bigger and better things from Congressman John LeBoutillier.
Well,
we'll forget about it, and I think the more and more information that comes out indicates that the man really is not fit to sit on the bench. I think the time has come to start really telling it like it is. I'm sick and tired of these people who are pussyfooting around, and are pussyfooting around because they have become intimidated. And as the great mayor of our city the other day pointed out, if we're going to allow ourselves to be intimidated, then it just means that things will get worse, not better. We've got to take a stand. This is Robert Loftman Sr., ladies and gentlemen, the father of Robert Loftman, who was murdered, and the judge let the murderer go scot-free. He didn't serve one day in jail. Well, Mr. Loftman, I met you, and I know you'd be the last person in the world to commit an act of violence. Unlike me, you have not thought that way. I know.
I couldn't do it.
If I were you, I'd be down at Goombata a couple of weeks ago, getting a contract out for several people. I won't name names, but several people. Well, the people in the 80s didn't want hard-hitting controversy. Which really, I don't understand, because here we're talking about you. We're talking about, more importantly, the fact that your son was murdered with impunity, and it's a great tragedy. I tell you, if this were a couple of years ago, and we were talking about it, with the following I had a couple of years ago, you'd really have something. But now it's just a shadow. But we live in a society in which we've allowed ourselves to become intimidated, and as long as the majority of society insists on being intimidated, the Robert Loftmans of the world will not be avenged. Have you heard from any of the so-called political leaders in the area?
He is all mortified.
Yeah, I was gratified to hear Senator Markey enter the fray, because he's been painted as a bleeding heart, but I don't think he's that much of a bleeding heart.
Let's not bring my son back, and nothing's going to get that kid retried. But this judge is getting away with this stuff. He's the thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Your son next will be anybody's son next.
Yes.
I think that we have to examine a couple of things before we can criticize any of his actions. And number one is that these third world Hitlers are committing genocide every day in their own country. The Soviet Union today was in the Times, is committing genocide daily in Afghanistan, and is committing murders far in excess of the effort to liberate Lebanon that the Israelis are carrying on. the Soviet Union is backing genocide in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, and these jungle hypocrites are keeping mute and quiet. And, we have to understand Menachem Begin himself. Here's a man whose soul, whose essence, who I would say his very spirit has been forged in the white heat of the Holocaust of World War II. And, it's easy, I think, for us in the United States, sitting in a nation that has never endured the hardships of the Jewish race, to have criticism of this man. But, Menachem Begin, I think, has surely learned from history. And I say that he has learned that it is better to live one day as a lion than 1,000 as a lamb.
Well, you got to be careful when you say that. Benito Mussolini, that was his favorite saying.
Well, Bob, Benito Mussolini believed in the establishment of a Zionist state.
That's right. Mussolini was a Zionist. That's true.
And in fact, he gave aid and refuge to the Jewish people. So therefore, I think that using that as a comparison, we have to look at the historical facts.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate that, Frank. Look at that. Here's this sanctimonious hypocrite who says you shouldn't make napalm, and she'd drop it on my head right now, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't tell anybody for anything in the world.
Well, then why do you get so violent?
That's just words.
You had to think about it, huh? She had to think about it. You're on. Until tomorrow, Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. The British riots, perhaps. As Joseph Sobran says, the British riots are not only mischievous in themselves, but the cause of mischief in others. American pundits are up to old tricks making excuses for rioters, with the novel difference that this time in the United States the riots haven't happened yet. True, New York has had an ugly race-related labor skirmish this week, but it doesn't look like a trend. That doesn't matter. British-scale riots are being approved in advance. The Liberals, a dozen years ago, mystified by riots in our own cities, Lyndon Johnson appointed a Kerner Commission to get at what were called the root causes. Fundamentalist Liberals cite still to this day the Kerner Report as gospel, giving a suitably tortured explanation of what should be self-explanatory, namely that rioting and looting can yield fun and profit. The devout Kernerite will not traffic in truths so forth. For him, poverty causes crime. White racism causes black riots. Except for Miami last year and New York during the 1977 blackout, it has been quite a while since this country has enjoyed what Hubert Humphrey once called a pretty good riot. So for many liberals, especially those addicted to hopefully apocalyptic predictions, the British riots promise a return to those thrilling days of yesteryear. And he goes on to say, Gary Wills blames the British riots not on rioters, that would be simplistic, but on Margaret Thatcher, whose economic policies he finds reactionary as well as analogous to Ronald Reagan's. He asks, does that mean America will have its own riots when the war on inflation reveals itself increasingly as a war on the poor? It may if we are unwilling to learn from Britain's experience, end of quote. Which, being interpreted, means that the Reagan administration is guilty of aggression against the poor, so that any violence the poor may commit must be considered self-defense. The U.S. is unlikely to oblige Wills with a civil war this time around, and even large-scale urban violence seems improbable. But it is worth noting that all the divisive rhetoric is coming from the liberal side, which insists that Reagan hates the poor. Reagan and George Bush have done all they can to assure that, in the administration's view, government has failed signally to help the poor, and that the supply-side approach will allow the economy to expand to the benefit of all, most particularly including the least affluent. Well, they may be wrong, but they have done nothing to deserve the demagogic spite that is now being flung against them. No demagogue has been more shameless than Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill. Quote, the president may be hard as nails when it comes to programs that help poor people. He may be a real tightwad when it comes to programs that help working families. But when it comes to giving tax breaks to the wealthy of this country, the president has a heart of gold. It might be more accurately said that Tip O'Neill has a heart of gold when it comes to giving away other people's money. Meanwhile, let it be recorded that the Reagan administration is attempting a politics of conciliation, and that its enemies are replying with appeals to whatever nasty sentiment they can stoke. Your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. And what's on your mind this afternoon? Well, I don't care what's on your mind. The strike of the controllers, the fact that those overpaid bums are going to be playing baseball again, right? Extravaganza, or whatever it is. A get-together, Gestalt therapy session, helping to wend your way home. We have not acknowledged, I have a letter chastising me, saying you have not acknowledged the greatest segment of your loyal following in what is known in radio circles as, and they quotes, afternoon drive time. See, I know radio parlance. But you have neglected this greatest segment of your following. Those gentlemen, and in some cases ladies, who have to endure the semi-imprisonment of their automobiles. Why semi? Trapped on the LIE, on the Pulaski Skyway, on the Turnpike, on the Grand Central Parkway, on the Van Wyck, on the Gowanus. On the Gowanus. And he names a whole lot of other places. He says, notice I don't mention the Cross Bronx Expressway because that's not an expressway, it's a parking lot. Ha ha. He put in the ha ha. Anyway, though, but I hope the president sticks to his guns. And wouldn't it be wonderful if most of the air controllers did what thus far 31% have done, and that is shown up for work. Their feet seem to be dipped in cement. They did you see them shouting like maniacs?
I don't
At a meeting the other night, strike, strike.
No,
I don't know if they were playing to the cameras or whether they're that wild.
I believe this is why I know on television. I watch very little television.
You watch the radio.
I watch the radio. That's why I'm on the telephone with you.
All right, thank you, dear. It has to do with the fact that Norman Mailer and some others, but mainly Norman, went off half-cocked and prevailed upon the powers that be, the parole board, to parole someone who had been put in a slammer. Oh, he'd only killed somebody and only was found guilty of armed robbery. And this guy was supposed to be... He was supposed to be returnable to society, a worthy member of society. Why? Because he was supposed to have been a writer. Yeah, he wrote all right. He wasn't out very long when, boom, what does he do? What do killers do? Painters paint, musicians play, actors act, politicians cheat, and killers kill. I guarantee you, you're going to find tomorrow's program absolutely fascinating. So be with us. Those of you who are not listening right now, you're invited to join us tomorrow, too.
Yes, so when I got before the witness stand, they picked me apart like I was a piece of turkey. You know,
Like you were what?
like a piece of turkey. They just kept plucking away and plucking away. Why did you do that?
You mean a piece of real dry turkey that fell apart?
You know, why beat him up? You know, why break his hand? Why come you didn't, you know?
I like the white meat myself. I guess everybody figured that.
And that's what happened, Bob.
Yeah.
That's the gospel.
And, okay, I tell you, I'm so impressed. Would you get somebody in here to continue the program? I can't after this story. It was so exciting.
Okay, Bobby, it's the truth. It's gospel.
All right, Bob.
These PATCO guys has...
In other words, there's no law. He's lying. There's no law that says they're not supposed to strike?
Certainly there's a law.
Well, then, what do you mean? What is he supposed to do? Be like so many of his predecessors and ignore the law?
Well, I can't say that to cut right and wrong here, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, in other words, the law is fuzzy, huh?
Well, look.
For your information, Gil of East Meadow, the law is not fuzzy at all. These guys took an oath that they wouldn't strike.
I didn't say the law was fuzzy.
Well, then what is this? It's not clear-cut. It is clear-cut.
Okay.
Apparently you don't believe in our system. Apparently you don't believe that congressional laws.
I don't believe in
This is a law that has been passed by Congress.
I don't believe in the perfection of the system. I believe that input by various parties...
Are you using all the tired cliche input by parties? Thank you, Gil. You're full of hot air. I can't believe it. Can't believe it. The guy says he's got a different approach to this issue, and then he... Hey!
I'm Barry Farber. Don't blame me. We're going to do our third show with Sidney Zion on his article in the New York Times Sunday Magazine section about how rock music is fading and good music is coming back. No other article within memory has caused such a ruckus in the New York Times Sunday Magazine section. I can't contain tornadoes in a wet paper bag. Round 3 of rock versus good music coming up on the Barry Farber Show right here on WMCA. We meet at midnight. Well, 5 minutes after.
I feel like talking like him because he seems to enjoy himself. I want to enjoy myself, too. 5 calories, I'm cracked up. Gil cracked me up. ACLU is mad. You know, if the ACLU got as mad over the fact that the guy had his house broken into a couple of times in the first place as they did at the, they insisted that the dentist be prosecuted. You know, the ACLU time and time again proves that what I said about them years ago was all too right.
I agree with you.
They are interested in the criminal, not society.
And because you used to say, see the picture with the death wish, remember?
Yeah.
With, Charles Brunson's. Well, these are, to law, they said the way they let these savages out, and the law couldn't take their hands, and they're out again to do so that
Yeah.
took the law.
You're making me nervous, Kenny, but that's all right. The next time, get on earlier so we have more time.
Can I to sign off?
Okay, do the sign
All
off.
right, say something different. Let's kick things in the head. Let's get Gaddafi and the savages and the animals. So long.
Sound like Buck Rogers. That's it. I'm Bob Grant.
Now, in the prior administrations, if you were threatened, it didn't make any difference whether you were threatened by blacks or Puerto Ricans or Jews or Italians or Irish, any group that felt it could go out and threaten, the mayor would cave. I don't believe that is the way to deal with a problem.
We do as much for France as they did for us. And that, of course, is nothing, because France and virtually every other nation in the world did absolutely nothing for us when the American embassy was seized. The Iranian maniacs have seized 60 French diplomats. And so what else is new? That did not go to Austria because word had leaked that a PLO terrorist, Abu Daoud, may have been en route to Austria. Terrorist Daoud, I'm happy to tell you, was gunned down on his way to Austria.
Yes. When we find people here who militate against laws that are clearly unfair, and certain commissioners of the airlines that are now penalizing these workers say that they are working under stress, instead of applauding them, we put them in jail and in handcuffs, and I'm wondering about that. Number 2, I'm questioning whether a president is really in a position to command the highest state of office. This gentleman, Mr. Reagan,
you know that it's Reagan, and if it makes you feel better to do that, to say Reagan or Reagan.
Reagan. That's not the point. To issue an ultimatum, because an ultimatum is a situation from which you cannot backtrack. And it's not...
Well, why should he want to backtrack? If they're in violation of the law, what is it a backtrack? You know, you've made one fatal flaw. You said we laud the Poles for standing up against Russia.
Yeah, against laws.
Hey, you know, I want to point out that Russia has no business in Poland.
Right.
And naturally, we would laud the Poles for going against their Russian transgressors.
Right.
That has no comparison to Americans
Right.
having a law which has nothing to do with a foreign power. For your information, it is the law that the president is supporting. It is the law, obviously, that the American people want. Now, if the American people don't want it, because this is a free nation, all we have to do is register a majority of the people saying, give the controllers whatever they want.
But we have that mechanism under our government at the moment.
We don't have, yes, we most certainly do.
Right.
All you have to do is call your congressman, write your congressman. Tell me, can they write a congressman in Poland?
Pardon?
Thank you. Until Monday, Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi.
So now you're going to help me with my mother problem?
I'm not going to help you. Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Wait a minute. Bernard, if these were the good old days,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the real good old days.
In the old Bob Grant.
Yeah. If I were the old Bob Grant,
Yeah.
before I was prepackaged, I would tell you you were a two-bit, miserable, insignificant creep.
Well, you could say
Would also say
it's the entirely wrong, of course.
that if you're a lawyer, God help the legal profession, and more importantly, the people who go to lawyers. But naturally, because I'm Bob Grant, circa 1981, all I say is, thank you for calling, Bernard. But you're not such a bad guy. I'm glad the old Bob Grant...
I wanted to say this. You might...
Well, you know what I'm going to say?
Now, listen, you might
I tell you what I'm going to say, Bernard, whether you like it or
Let
not.
me finish this.
That kicks things in the head for today.
Hold on.
Wait a minute, Bernard. I was going to let him say, get Gaddafi.
From Yonkers.
I think it's a Goombata from
You are 100% right, Bob.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel somehow or other that all is not lost. The Goombata from Yonkers is on the phone. We all stand.
Well, I want to thank you again for that applause. Listen, Bob, getting a lot of calls, and I've been meeting a lot of people, and they say, get on the phone with Bob Grant. Everybody's asking for you.
That's right. You know, Goombata, I think that without you, this program really lacks something. He's got a lot of company there.
Oh, yeah. Very, very much company.
As a matter of fact, they say that East River fish are the biggest, healthiest fish in the world because they've been feeding on a lot of guys that have been eating pretty good. Oh, dear. I'm getting so mellow I can't even get upset over it.
Listen, fella, I'd like to take you by the throat and punch your nose right down your mouth. Now, what do you got to say to that?
Listen, you mealy-mouthed, limp-wristed creep. Why don't you get off my phone?
Your work plans embargo? No, I think it's...
Excuse me, just a moment, sir. Just a moment, sir. Are you the professional anti-Zionist?
I don't know if I'm professional.
You're not. You mean they don't pay you for it? They don't pay you for wanting to destroy Israel? You know, you ought to get paid for that, pal. I know a fellow by the name of Yasser Arafat or a fellow by the name of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi would gladly give you 2 cents. Because that's all you're worth.
May I continue?
Of course.
Okay. It didn't take them long to cave into the Zionist electoral blackmail.
Here we go. Hey, how can you keep a straight face and say that?
It's easy. It's true, isn't it?
Tell me, do you have that swastika actually embedded in your forehead, a la Charlie Manson? Or is it just written on your forehead?
I don't wear a swastika, but anyway, I like the...
By the way, did you identify the town you're calling from?
No, I don't, because we have a powerful difference. Well, I told you my first name.
Coming, ladies and gentlemen, this call is coming direct from New Jersey. Yeah. You're on Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. And get Gaddafi. It need me to tell you by this time that 2 Libyan planes, actually Soviet planes, that the Libyan Air Force was using were shot out of the skies by United States fighters. And, of course, unlike the past administration, we do things that we feel we must do in the interests of the defense of this nation and do not apologize. What a difference an election makes. We'll talk more about it. When Jimmy Carter got sucked in by Fidel who gives a darn anyway Castro media over the years that we're afraid to really take action needed. In other words, we say it would be like the medical profession saying against disease, but we don't want to inoculate anybody because it hurts when you stick a needle in someone's arm. Well, it may hurt some people. To cure the problem is, number one, round up every illegal alien we can get our hands on.
I mean, this is
Those of you who kept calling, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, those of you who kept calling the main switchboard today, saying that I had engineered the shooting down of the Libyan planes, you give me credit for too much power. If I had half, a 1/1,000,000th of the power that you think I have, I'd be a dictator of Tanzania or something. I mean, gee, people are calling you, Bob Bragg was behind that. We know he's been saying get Gaddafi for 11 years. It's that many years, not 11. I'd like to get your reactions on a couple of things. Now, this may sound like small potatoes, but one of the reasons you have a call-in talk program is to deal with small potatoes. But follow this. And those of you who are in automobiles, if you have a telephone, you may call. If you don't, well, do the next best thing. United States Congress, over the years, they kept sweetening and broadening the program, and I think twisting it all out of shape from the original intent. It was not intended for all of these skunks that come in here and siphon off the wealth of the land. It was not intended for that purpose at all. Because right now, politicians are afraid of, quote, tampering with Social Security. The political word is, don't be caught touching the program in any way, shape, or form because people get nervous. But I think we have a courageous enough president who will say, hey, look, folks, you want to save the program? In order to save it, we've got to get rid of some of these idiotic abuses.
Well,
And he will become, in the long run, more popular than ever if he does that.
this is something that certainly...
What to do is hang around any Social Security office or any welfare office or any office in which entitlement programs are established, and you get sick, absolutely sick, and you realize why. Number one, taxes are so high, and number two, inflation is so incredible, and three, why in return for what we're taxed, we get so little.
Planes on a boat and ship them back.
We could, but the bleeding hearts won't let us. The judges would block that, and it's been suggested in the past, and until the American people says to its Congress, look, if you don't demand that we take the necessary action to get rid of these anywhere from 6 to 12 million invaders, then we're going to vote for the other guy. That's the only way to do it.
Bob.
And some of you probably never even heard of Libya, so you're not interested. You're on WMCA. Hello.
My opinion goes like that. If Jimmy Carter would be president, let him free, because he would say, come back, don't shoot. But if Ronald Reagan is president, he should be open right away.
Great, I like it. The logic is compelling.
Wait, have the Russians made any comment at all about this?
Thus far, not a word, but I'm sure I know exactly what Tass and his Vestia will say. I could write it for them. I think it's precisely what the doctor ordered. Following a totally irresolute 4 years of an administration which gave so many conflicting signals to the world that we were perceived as a pitiful giant, that we have sent a signal that we're not to be trifled with. We're not going to be calling Bonn, Paris, London, Rome, and every other country in the world and say, is that all right if we defend ourselves?
Well, you see, yes. You know, Bob, there's nothing that sends a shiver of fear and terror down the yellow spines of two-bit Soviet tin-horn dictators like the American eagle when its talons are bared and it's flying high. And yesterday they swatted a couple of fleas out of the sky. But you know, Bob, there's a few things that have happened that this incident coincides with. For example, the Egyptian army was practicing military maneuvers at the Libyan border in joint sea and naval exercises with the United States. And also, as you know, the OPEC meeting is going on. And I think that scum down in Libya would try and gain some sort of sympathy by saying that the United States was carrying on overt moves of aggression against his dictatorship.
Frank's mentioning Egyptian army maneuvers is significant. I'll tell you why I say that, Frank. As you well know, just a little over a week ago, President Anwar Sadat was in this country, did meet with President Reagan, and as you know, Anwar Sadat has called for the defeat of Gaddafi more than anybody, even more than I have.
That's right.
And I think that there may be some connection. In other words, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if the president said to Mr. Sadat, well, we are going to test Gaddafi, and we're going to do that by conducting our exercises in an area that he claims for his own. And as you know, it was 200 miles away from the Libyan coastline.
And it also comes, Bob, at a time when we've given the jets back to Israel almost to the day that we've sent the F-16s. It's Ronald Reagan's strategic consensus that he's telling America's allies throughout the world, be it friends in the Great Army of the Afrikaans in South Africa or in Israel or in Egypt, wherever they're fighting against communist terrorists, that the United States will back them to the hilt. Now, currently, the United States will no longer allow itself to be pushed around. And you know, Bob, if you look at the difference, what happened in this country between a year ago, when Americans were held hostage, when Libyans looted and burnt our embassy, those maniacs in Iran, what a difference 1 year has made with Ronald Reagan as our president.
You put it very well. Thank you, Frank. Today, I had a meeting with some gentlemen, three very distinguished gentlemen, informed people, and one man was talking about just what Frank had alluded to, the difference between this administration and the past administration. And this gentleman could not remember the name of the 39th president. He could not remember. And I think that is the greatest achievement the 39th president could have performed. He was so insignificant, such a total failure, that not even a full year after he left office, people can't even remember his name.
It was William Casey is pro-Israel. In other words, he's with the group, and they put extreme pressure on Goldwater to lay off. In fact, Congressman McCluskey had brought this up a few weeks ago, saying that about the tremendous pressure on the White House, congressmen and so forth, put on by the Israeli lobby. Now, I think this is a disgrace when you have Mr. Richard Allen, who's an advisor to President.
Are you reading the Spotlight?
I read it. Yes, I do read it. I wish you would read it also.
Yeah, okay, pal, thank you. He just revealed himself. Okay, you're on it.
In 1 week, get approximately $400 a month on SSI. It was bad enough when the United States used to send the money all over the world. Now they come here and pick it up.
That's to see Paul Neal and those Menage. You get a hit squad. Thank you very much on a somewhat elongated ball. Until tomorrow, Bob Grant reminding you, your influence counts. Get Gaddafi. That the on-again, off-again feud between the mayor and the governor. By the way, is it L'Oreal or Clairol that the governor is using? Would someone please find out? I don't know why guys in the booth fall off the chair. I mean, there's no secret that he did. It wasn't Pava that he started taking that got rid of the gray. Maybe NJ does it. You know, I have a hunch. I'll bet you. I can't prove this. And if the New York Post, call the New York Post, tell them who we are. They'll say, who, what, where are you on the dial? Because they never heard of us. Oh, wait a minute. Tell them at the Barry Farber station, in case they wonder. They say, W what? What? The Barry Farber. Tell them over there, because you know how I get my name in the Post? I call and I imitate Farber. I say, this is Barry Farber. This is page 6A. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yes. Have the Post do an expose. But I believe that she does it, that NJ probably gives him the treatment. probably has him put on a little apron, a little plastic something so his shoulders won't get it. And she puts on the little plastic gloves or whatever they use. And she probably does it for him. And she probably leaves it on 25 minutes and then has him shampoo it out. Anyway, if NG likes it, anyway, getting back to the mayor, he said yesterday that if the governor were running for re-election this year, he would lose. And that the public has the perception that he is not applying himself to his job. Mayor's broadside came just a few weeks after he had declared a truce, if you remember. I think it'd be entertaining. See, El Diario has endorsed the mayor. And I got that directly from Fiorentino Silva, who interprets El Diario for me every day. He says, que como la está haciendo? And they answer that question with this answer. Bastante bien. All right. Lo and behold, somebody slipped up and dialed this number. Hello. I believe the the Mets ball game tonight, coming on early, eulogizing another mediocre ball player. I'd like to interview Bob Murphy. He's the rather portly fellow who is on with Ralph Kiner and Steve, Marv's brother. And I wonder what it's like to be a person who finds only... you got to do a brainwash job on yourself. You got to really... You can't be naturally getting up every day and saying, everything the Mets management does is just great. Every ball player they have is just great. How do you do that, Bob Murphy? How do you do that? How do you avoid telling the truth when a guy louses up a play, when a guy makes a dumb throw, when a guy is not hustling, when the management makes a dumb trade? How do you do that? Would you call him down in Atlanta and ask him, I want to learn, I want to take lessons. Take lessons. I wonder if the guy's got an ulcer. No, he couldn't be. He's eating too much. When you have an ulcer, you start getting... No, he can't have an ulcer. No, he can't. I'll tell you what, right here, I can say on pretty good authority, the New York State Republicans are hoping against hope that Hugh Carey is the candidate. They want to run against him, just as they wanted to run against, on a national level, Jimmy, I'll never lie to you, Carter. Remember him? You do recall him. You don't? Well, let me try to refresh your memory. He had a brother who palled around with the Libyans. That doesn't do it. He had a brother who couldn't find a men's room at an airport down in Atlanta, and that's right. That's the Jimmy I'm talking about. Billy's brother. Do you remember? WMCA, hello.
Dr. Grant, could you help me out, please?
Wait a minute, pal. Look, I like callers. There's no doubt about it. Without callers, I'd have to talk to myself, and all I'd get would be boringly intelligent answers. But the one thing I will not put up with are callers who have phony accents. Now, if you want to talk the way the good Lord made you talk, or created you to talk, you're welcome to speak. But if you want to use that phony accent, I won't hear you. What do you want to do? Are you there?
Dr. Grant?
Okay, you insist on the phony accent.
Help me out, please.
Uh-huh. He insists on the phony... I tell you, he's a guy who really, a psychiatrist would probably say, wants to be a Hasid, would like to be a member of a Hasidic community, because he always calls, trying to imitate one of those guys. And if Alex Nalyevitz, is it too close for sundown for Alex to call? Yes, it is. Too close for Alex. Well, that kicks things in the head for today. No, I'm only kidding. And kicks things in the head for tonight and the next 2 weeks. I will be back on Labor Day. Till then, this is Bob Grant reminding you your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi. Tell you about the truly rewarding time I had I'll tell you just a little bit since people seem to want to know. And, you know, the two ladies who want to know, when 2/3 of your audience wants to know something, you'd better be obedient. What can I tell you except it is a long, long journey. You fly about 5 hours to the West Coast, and then you wait about 5 or 6 hours until you get your plane to take you to Hawaii. You fly to Hawaii for about 5 hours, a little under perhaps. Then you wait another hour or two until your plane is all ready to continue. And continue you do for 10 whole hours until you touch down in Sydney, Australia. Evergreens, you have all kinds of trees, banyan trees. The foliage is beautiful. The birds are the most incredibly colorful birds I've ever seen. I saw a platypus. Of course, I had to go to the zoo for that. You don't see platypi walking around leisurely. Australian people are very polite. They're not in a hurry. You know, the thing that I marveled at was I had rented a car, and they drive on the left side of the street as they do in England. And it took me a while to get my bearings, so when a light would change, I was rather slow. Nobody ever beeped a horn at me, and they had plenty of reason to do so. Can you believe that? Can you believe a country of drivers that don't beep their horn? There are people who listen to this radio station are also great followers or avid followers of the late Rabbi Untitled and followers of Rabbi Stein. I believe it's Ephraim Stein. And these people who have counterparts in Israel have been getting bopped around pretty good by the Israeli police. Why? Because they want to stop the work of archaeologists who believe they have found the site of the city of David, built 1,000 years before Christ. And about 1,000 protesters, organized by the Central Rabbinical Congress of the United States and Canada, picketed Menachem Begin outside the wall of Astoria, where riding a bus in Israel threw stones because the bus was moving on the Sabbath. And I denounce these people. I denounce them. How dare they try to inflict their beliefs on others? And if people listening in Williamsburg are disappointed to hear me say that, that's too bad. They can call me and tell me they're disappointed. Press that about 100,000 union members stepped out to the cadence of martial music on Fifth Avenue yesterday for the city's Labor Day parade. But the mayor was forced to march to a different beat. A cacophony of boos and catcalls. Were you impressed with the fact that organized labor in this city was so gauche as to not invite the President of the United States? Do you think the President of the United States or the mayor of the city are worried? Well, I don't think they are, because I think they know the rank and file, the average union man and woman, does not share the closed-minded, militant, self-serving, selfish, narrow views of union leadership. And let's see what else. How do you like the report that's come out in New York Magazine, which confirms what I've said for years, that there are more murdering skunks per capita walking around New York City than anywhere else? What do I mean by murdering skunk? Just that, literally. A person who has already been convicted of murdering someone, taking a human life, only to be released to kill again and again and again. And do you mind? Obviously, you don't mind enough, as you put a stop to that. There's a lot to talk about. And as Carl Sagan said when they asked him, what would you say if you could speak to the universe? Is anybody out there?
You back again. One position might be no good.
Sound like the type who would believe in an evil hex.
Not because,
On the state of affairs that telephone talk radio is in, this represents the hardcore of callers. This, a guy worried about if he's sleeping facing north. What do you think you are, compass? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble, folks. I'm in trouble. I mean, there it is. The last caller. Sounds like a Francis Ford Coppola movie. You're on WMCA. Hello.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
it's Frank.
Yes, Bob.
Oh.
Bob, while you were in Australia, I want to know what was their reaction to the great Republic of South Africa and the great army of the Afrikaans that had stood up to the Soviet Union and smashed those SWAPO lackeys of the Soviet Union. What did they think of that over there?
Well, they were very guarded in their comment about it. They are very concerned with and very sensitive to those things. So they were very guarded about it.
Curious because...
Well, I had read about it, and I was delighted, and I was particularly proud of my country for having the guts to veto that asinine resolution.
Well, once again, Bob, we could say what a difference a year makes, because when Jimmy Carter was president, we can remember who the ambassadors to the UN were and how biased they were towards America's allies.
As a matter of fact, the subject of Mr. Young came up. A fellow at dinner asked me about him. What was he was trying to find some rationale for his being the UN ambassador. And I said, I don't know how else to explain it to you except to say domestic politics. And he said, oh, yes, I know. And then he said a few other things which will be better left unsaid.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Frank. And so we got the guy who's worried about sleeping facing the north, or is it the south, or is it the east, or is it the west? And we got Frank, and we have you on WMCA. Hello.
Hello, Bob.
You're in exclusive company, sir.
Thank you.
The porno flick, the something of Misty Beethoven, the opening of Misty Beethoven, that was it, when I took 125 loyal WMCA listeners to the theater to see that picture. Those were the good old days. Remember?
Avoid boxing all they can. If there's a heavyweight title fight or the Hearns thing, they build it up. But basically, every day they should have something on boxing like some of the small papers do. Also, the New York papers seem to avoid boxing, except when there's a big fight coming up. And I'm wondering why they pay attention to all the sissy sports like where you kick the ball around, soccer, and the other things, and find new sissy sports every year, but they keep avoiding boxing.
I wish they'd avoid boxing altogether because boxing is no sport.
Well,
I don't consider two guys getting in a ring with the object being to break each other's noses and heads. I don't consider that a sport. I consider that a vestige of the bestiality that is in people. I consider that bringing out the worst in us. I consider that even as bad as having gladiators get into a ring to fight to the death.
Okay, with all the great champions we've had, like Muhammad Ali and Marciano and Joe Louis and Billy Conn, etc. I mean,
that doesn't change the fact that the so-called sport they had to participate in was a brutal experience.
Okay, thank you very much.
I found them very dull.
There weren't any talk shows?
Yes, there were.
What did the people talk about? Well, it has to be more exciting than this show, right?
Than this one?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Well, of course, the hosts were better. There was one program hosted by someone by the name of John Laws, dealt mainly with problems of a personal nature.
They didn't talk about
there would be like calling a shrink, although the guy's not a shrink, he's just a guy that's avoiding work like me. And they don't do what American women do that get on the air. You know, the Barbara Walters syndrome of don't open your mouth, let it all come through your nose like this. They don't do that. They articulate.
The only answer for it is to pick up all the known criminals and to banish them from the country like the French used to do. And that's the only answer I know how to deal with it.
You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, the truth of the matter is, in order to really bring crime under control in this country, we would have to suspend the Constitution, declare martial law,
Absolutely.
and do precisely what you said, all known criminals to be rounded up.
Yes.
Now, I don't say that lightly. I don't say that in a fit of emotion. I say that based on the fact that police departments the nation over have told authorities that they know who essentially is committing the bulk of the crime. In this city, I've talked to New York City detectives, and the same 400, 500, 1,000 people are committing the crimes over and over again. They know who they are.
Absolutely.
But they can't round them up because the Constitution is used by the ACLU and other bleeding heart groups as being the instrument which protects them.
Yes.
You know, to be perfectly honest about it, we'd have to suspend the Constitution, declare martial law, round them all up. We couldn't send them anywhere because we have nowhere to send them. So the best thing would be to put them up against the wall and shoot them.
Yes, and it makes...
I'll tell you, this country would be so much better the morning after all the predators were exterminated, wouldn't it?
Up the last straw. They started this guy, Randy Jones, who's 31 going on 41. He was washed up before...
His arm is 61.
61, you're right, Bob. He goes back to Zeke Benura. But anyway, he pitched and they banged him around. The fans are yelling, get him out, take him out, take him out. So finally, Joe Torre, our Goombata, comes out, and he finally gets him out to the booze. And what happens with the announcers? Good old Bob Murphy, he goes out and tells you, oh, poor Randy, he needed to work. You know, his leg was hurting him, and that's why he's out. Now, you know, how do they want us to keep swallowing this thing and then go out there and pay $7, $8 a ticket?
Spot right here, and I'll tell you why, quite frankly. Because the real truth of the matter is that the Mets have given the fans a really lousy team.
Right,
I have to say that I can't lie, even though the Met games are broadcast on this radio station. I think, however, that Joe Torre deserves the patience from the fans that he has shown. I think if we talk about broadcasters, I do find Phil Rizzuto, even though I despise the Yankees, I find him so refreshing because even though he's paid by the Yankees, he doesn't pull his punches on things.
That's right.
Now, Ralph Kiner isn't too bad, but a guy like Bob Murphy, probably a wonderful guy. I do not know the man, but he's such an apologist. Everything is coming up roses.
Everything.
Yeah. I find that really hard to take. He's the counterpart to Frank Messer. You know, between, just imagine if Messer and Murphy were both on the same time. It would get so high you'd have to wear hip boots. I myself am really bored with George Steinbrenner. I'm bored with it. Also, I want to say that I think the sports writers of America, not just New York, but the sports writers of America, including New York, are suckers. They get sucked in time and time again by hype. There is virtually nobody, now listen to me carefully, there's virtually nobody in sports broadcasting or sports writing that, quote, tells it like it is. There's some who come close. The flannel mouth of all flannel mouths, you know who I'm talking about. I was in Cleveland last night, front-running for the San Diego Chargers. The flannel mouth and all flannel mouths doesn't tell it like it is. He is constantly buttressing every remark he makes with a little more, I'll be euphemistic, apple polishing for rue knowledge. And why not? It's paid off.
And I really think it's the opposite that's the root of the problem. The fact is that the Constitution has already been suspended, and that's why we're in the trouble we're in. The Constitution already provides for a national defense, a police force, a judicial system, and as everyone knows, none of these things work. And I believe it is because the Constitution has been suspended. What we should do is bring the Constitution back into effect, let people own their own lives rather than have the government own them.
Would have to be suspended because it is the Constitution, particularly the Article 4 and 5 and 8 that are used to defend these criminals. The ACLU constantly wins court cases because of the invocation of those sections of the Constitution.
By violating our own rights to life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the bottom of it all is the inescapable fact that you cannot be against crime and be a member of the ACLU at the same time.
Exactly.
Because the ACLU is constantly defending criminals whether they're guilty or not. And they never once take note of the need to protect society, number one, and the need to punish the evildoers, number two. I think
Him and Healy, when they're together, it's like entertainment.
Yes, it is entertainment. Healy has improved immeasurably.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
As a matter of fact, he ought to give lessons to Shamsky because, Shamsky's got to be the worst. The worst.
Yeah, well, what I want to say also, Bob, is that the only announcer paid by the Yankees is Healy. The other three are paid by WPIX.
Yeah, but they have to be approved. If
Oh, no, I don't mean that. I'm just, you mentioned the fact...
Yeah, okay, you're right.
Right?
But they have to be approved. I take it from me. They have to be approved. If Steinbrenner should say...
Oh, yes, I agree.
Okay.
About Steinbrenner, now you brought him up. They sent Reggie Jackson out for a physical. I believe Steinbrenner should go out and have a physical. There's something wrong between his two ears.
There's no doubt that the man has a great streak of sadism.
Yeah, he wants to be king.
He's a very complex person. He would defy Sigmund Freud to analyze him. He's really a complex person. But who's tapped out because they have to pay the VIG from yesterday? I know one guy. He's a stockbroker, so that means if you should shoot him, it's okay. Won 5 out of 6. And now he thinks that's it. He's found the magic to do all those kind of things, you know. Here's something that...
Yes.
You mean with that cockamamie mathematical...
50% oral and 50% written?
Right.
I think that's justly unfair to the fellows who have been studying for 3 and 4 years, going to school 3 nights a week, or 3 days, whichever time they had, and now to make it oral for the people who can't actually read or write, perhaps. They're giving them the oral part of the test. Do you think that's fair? Or
no, I don't think that's fair. I think it's another classic case of saying, hey, these guys aren't capable of doing the job, so we'll make it easier for them.
That's right.
We can't raise the bridge, so we'll lower the river.
Right.
Let me just set this thing earlier. In the Star Ledger, there was a very good article by Franklin Gregory about the menace of public strikes. And he had a very good comment. He said, a private strike is a nuisance, but a public strike is subversive of government. And I wouldn't go in the street, and they're hanging out in the yards, and they're harassing the people in the neighborhood.
I believe that's exactly where this fellow Abbott.
Yeah.
That's where Abbott was when he murdered Richard Aden. Right.
And on top of that, too, the fellow...
they shuttled between there and, Ward's Island, back and forth.
Yes, back and forth.
Well, I think what they ought to do is put them all on Ward's Island and then sink the island.
That's right.
I see where B.F. Skinner, in yesterday's press, was quoted as saying he gives up. He sees no hope for mankind, no hope for this country. He's one of the people who thought that if you treated a lion like a lamb, the lion, instead of roaring, would go, bah. He's one of the people, in theory anyway, who's responsible for the belief that if you coddled criminals, you'd make them nice guys. Well, he says he was all wrong. Well, with all due respect, Professor Skinner, I told you were all wrong on this microphone 11 years ago. And I'm not proud of the fact that I was right and you were wrong. I wish it were the other way around. Talk show host. But you were a person who, with your prestigious books, such as beyond human dignity, Walden 2, etc. You had far too much influence, you and your kind. Being on the downgrade, the United States, where English once enjoyed a near monopoly status as the accepted language of government and everyday affairs, is becoming a polyglot nation. And you say, well, gee, I'm sorry, I don't understand Vietnamese. And he says, constitutional rights. Bavan, I'll give you Vietnamese. Bavan. That's Vietnamese. Bavan. Can you believe that? Driver's license test. In San Francisco, there are election ballots printed in Chinese. School classes taught in languages other than English are now a nationwide fixture, with taxpayers, hey, Zlob, that's you, helping to underwrite classroom instruction in, are you ready for this, sitting down, Ma? 70 languages. 70 languages. Chicago offers public school classes in 17 languages, 6 more than New York City, which, of course, is supposed to be the historical melting pot city. And you people who may go back long enough to have been crammed in the Lower East Side, or the children of immigrants who landed on Ellis Island, what a disgrace, huh? Russia, Italy, Germany, wherever. You worked real hard. Went to high school to learn the language. Did you know in many states, Social Security forms, other federal paperwork, and state examinations for professional accreditations, along with store signs and fast food menus, are printed in foreign languages? Checks in a dozen states indicate that the altered linguistic landscape has come about through the convergence of several forces. Recent waves of immigration of millions of Latin Americans and Asians have played a large part, along with the rapid population growth in the established Hispanic population. But I want to tell you something. It wasn't always this way. 60 years ago, Louisiana, despite its large French lineage population, banned the use of French in school classrooms and even on school grounds. In 1968, though, the law was taken off the books. About 28 million people in the United States, 1 person in 8, according to the Department of Education, have a mother tongues other than English or live in households in which languages other than English are spoken. But Congress has passed some laws based on some erroneous interpretations of Supreme Court decisions, but it's up to the Congress, and Congress has mandated these asinine, self-defeating, destructive laws that force ballots to be printed in different languages, signs to be printed in different languages, driver's tests to be given in different languages. It's the United States Congress that's responsible. In private business, and he was making a living. He made a living. What I do object to is tax dollars going to perpetuate a bilingualism. I thank you, dear. The whole point. I'm not talking about people not knowing English when they come to this country. I'm talking about this country spending millions, hundreds, in bilingual programs, in perpetuating bilingualism. People have come to this country and not known English for years and years, but they learned English in the past. Now there's really no need to learn English.
The higher powers proposal to make for a constitutional amendment making English the official language of the United States.
If that's what's needed, then we'd better do it.
Yeah, you know that.
Gentlemen are going to step into a ring at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time tonight and try to beat each other's brains out. The object of a boxing match, you know, is to pulverize the other guy. And the object is to knock him out. And in order to knock a person out, you have to hit them pretty hard. And sometimes they break ribs, sometimes they rupture spleen, sometimes a person has a broken jaw, broken nose, bloody eyes, he's cut. Sometimes they die. Sometimes they die. I've seen that one gentleman is going to make, I believe it's $12 to $13 million, and the other is going to make $6 million. Leonard will get $13 million, and Hearns will get $6 million. Now, I don't blame Hearns or Leonard. After all, they're just capitalizing on the fact that we are a bloodthirsty creature. The species known as Homo sapiens is a bloodthirsty creature. And I guarantee you this, if we could ever bring back the gladiators and the Circus Maximus, they would break all box office records. And could you imagine putting gladiators on cable television? It's obscene. But that's what human beings are. Obscene. They lust for blood. And if the fight is dull, if people say, what a lousy fight, it means nobody really was landing hard punches. But if there's blood, and if a guy is knocked down and he gets up and he knocks down the other guy, and then the other guy gets up and knocks him down, people will say it was a great fight. We're beings, all right, but are we human beings? It shows that one of the greatest factors involved in a divisive nation is that language factor.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt. I thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
This city and making it uninhabitable for decent people of all ethnic groups. I'd like to speak about where the cadre, the core of these children comes from. Currently, the illegitimacy rate in this city is 30%. In May of this year, the New York Times reported that as of March last year, there were 869,711 people on the city's welfare rolls. Of these, 753,440 were in the aid to dependent children category. That is, about 85% of the people on welfare are in the aid to dependent children category. What is wrong with this city can be summed up in a brief three-word phrase: children having children. We are the least intelligent, least responsible women in the population to inflict on us ever larger populations of dropouts, delinquents, smashers, trashers, felony criminals, political terrorists. And it is really very much like the emperor's new clothes. I think that everyone actually knows what is going on, but there's an incredible taboo about speaking up and discussing it.
Well, 11 years ago, almost to the very day, it was September 20th of 1970, that I unveiled for the first time the Bob Grant Mandatory Sterilization Act. And I was addressing myself to just that problem.
Sir,
I've survived.
Sir, before we can get to that stage, we have to place enough pressure on persons on shows such as this and on the politicians to begin to admit that this is the core, the basis of our...
Well, everybody admits it privately. Frank, everybody knows. Everybody knows. Matter of fact, your allusion to the Emperor has no clothes statement shows that you understand. Everybody knows, but everybody's afraid to really offer the only corrective prescription. Yelping about for years, the bench is only a reflection of the electorate. And for many, many years, there were too many liberal ninnies being elected. And for too many years, those ninnies appointed other ninnies to the bench. So it's going to take a lot of years of some straight-thinking, non-liberal ninnies to make some straight-thinking, non-liberal appointments for the judiciary to catch up with the rest of us, you see. You tune in and find out, both of you. Have you ever heard of Thomas Sowell, S-O-W-E-L-L? Well, he was bound to be a favorite intellectual at Ronald Reagan's White House, a prolific economic historian. He's an impassioned defender of conservative dogma. His own life is an advertisement for the American dream. Born poor, he dropped out of high school. He attended college on the GI Bill. He won a bachelor's degree from Harvard and a PhD in economics from the University of Chicago. And then he went on to a distinguished teaching career, perhaps equally attractive to the president and his followers. Thomas Sowell is black and claims to reflect the views of a vast, quiet black mainstream. Now, the White House would like to believe him, said presidential counselor Edwin Meese at a conference of mostly conservative blacks organized by Sowell last December. Some of the people who purport to represent the black community are talking about the ideas of the last 10 years. You are talking about the ideas of the next 10 years. Mr. Sowell is 51. He's a senior fellow at the Hoover Institute at Stanford, and he seems to be everywhere arguing his case. Now, I was reading some of his positions, which are anathema to many blacks, and he, of course, has few supporters among black scholars. As a matter of fact, Cornell political economist Manning Marable, for one, dismisses him as, and here's what Mr. Marable says about Thomas Sowell, he is an ebony version of Milton Friedman. As a matter of fact, Mr. Sowell studied under Nobel Prize winner Friedman at Chicago, and many of his positions bear a free market stamp. Forced school busing is insulting and destructive to blacks as well as whites. Affirmative action and quotas with their accompanying threat of anti-discrimination suits by those who do not win promotions lead employers to hire only the safest risks, the most talented and credentialed members of minority groups. The minimum wage has quintupled teenage unemployment among blacks because employers eliminate jobs rather than pay more than unskilled youths are worth. His latest scholarly publications minimize the present-day importance of white racism and blame defects in black attitudes and black skills for much of the still wide lag in income of blacks behind whites. To his mind, this is a pragmatic judgment, not a moral one. Says Thomas Sowell, and I quote, "Cultures are not superior or inferior. They are better or worse adapted to a particular set of circumstances. Because slavery so distorted the black experience in the United States, Sowell suggests blacks could measure their progress as though they were recently arrived immigrants."
I don't like it. About the rugby thing.
Yeah.
If anybody don't like it, don't go, don't buy their products, and that's it.
But that isn't the way the mentality of this group functions, you see. They want a rule. They don't want to take that attitude.
That's right. If it's for their purposes, they could be totalitarians. That aren't 10 feet tall, you know, they're not going to come into the United States. What are you worrying about? Be friendly with them. And I remember Jimmy Carter just about 5 years ago saying that we have an inordinate fear of the Russians and we should get over that.
Yeah, but don't forget, about a year or so later, he says, "I misjudged. That was the biggest mistake I've made." Don't you remember?
Yeah, definitely.
After they went into Afghanistan?
Yeah, now...
He said, "I was wrong."
They should all take a lesson from our friend Anwar Sadat, who's been learning since '73 how friendly the Russians are. Maybe we should all wake up. Okay?
Well, 10 feet tall. They're not. They never have been. The matter is, the Communist Manifesto has never been rejected by Leonid Brezhnev or any other swine running the Kremlin. Never been rejected. Never been renounced. Their intentions were laid out. They're very clear. They are unalterable. They are inflexible. The tactics may change, but the strategy has never changed. And by the way, speaking of an obscenity, here's an obscenity. Andrei Gromyko will address the United Nations. Now, what has he got to say?
And there were communists coming to demonstrate in a certain town, and you heard the KKK may not like it. However, you allow the demonstration or the march to go ahead.
You know, the fatal flaw in your analogy is we're not talking about a demonstration. We're talking about an athletic event. We're not talking about people who are coming in purposely to agitate or to use the word you use, demonstrate. They're not demonstrating anything other than their skill at playing rugby.
I'm sure that...
You can't justify this. You'll try, but you can't.
I'm not justifying it. I'm saying he's being prudent.
He's not being prudent.
I think that rather than face the bluntness of an eventuality...
Well, let me ask you this. Did he get a message? Did somebody say, "Hey, Governor, This is going to... Hey, wait a minute. Did someone actually spell it out? The answer is no. And you know that.
He saw what happened before in other places. And
in other words, what you're saying is he feels that blacks would cause all this trouble? I mean, who...
No, who said that? It could be anyone. There are many other people who would demonstrate. The people in New Zealand were not black. I'm not saying that at all.
But they were a bunch of commies.
That may be so, but I'm not arguing who is going to demonstrate. I'm saying...
But wait a minute, where you're making your mistake is in assuming that the governor knows in advance what's going to happen. He doesn't.
No, but there are things called intelligence, in which a person may have heard of a...
So in other words, you dismiss this, it's all right. But if let's say they wanted to have a game sponsored by some civil rights group, we'll say, and they were just going to play a soccer match, a rugby match, or any other athletic event, and someone who didn't like it protested, then it would be all right with you to cancel it, huh? You wouldn't...
I would think I'd be prudent and cancel it, yeah.
I see. So we'll be prudent.
I'm sure, for example, if someone were to organize a certain team of minority groups...
Here's a guy, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is prudent. Everything is prudent. Hello? Uh-huh. Yeah, it's prudent. There are a lot of things I can't stand. One is when a person is obviously being hypocritical about it. It's prudent. That's a euphemism. Folding like cheap cameras is what they're doing on WM. Yes, Frank.
Bob, believe it or not, the ACLU is in complete agreement on your stand on the Springbok tour of the Republic of South Africa, because every group, no matter what, has a right to express its opinion. And since we've degenerated from the United States of America to the year 20 million BC and the year of rational rule to the law of the jungle where violence seems to be the only criteria for getting what you want, they feel that a very, very dangerous precedent has been set. Take, for example, Bob, if the Bolshoi Ballet should decide to come to Lincoln Center, well, that JDL scum could say that they want to burn it down because of what's going on to Soviet Jews. Or a group of Afghanistani exiles or sympathizers in the United States could say that. The IRA supporters could say that we can no longer have any British theatrical group perform at any theater in the city because it disagrees with their political views. And I think, Bob, that a major mistake is in the press of this country that constantly uses the term white minority-ruled government of South Africa. How come in the Soviet Union, where only 3% of the population is Communist Party members, they never seem to say the Communist Party minority-ruled government of the Soviet Union? They never seem to talk, for example, when they had those wackos out in West Germany that were protesting the United States, why don't they talk about 400,000 Soviet troops that were stationed in East Germany?
Well, there's a double standard, there's no doubt. For example, the Voting Rights Act, which was used as the basis for overturning the redrawing of the city council lines. If it were majority rule, then it wouldn't make any difference, would it?
No, it wouldn't. And Bob, this is all being done because we know that there are gubernatorial elections coming up and there are civic elections coming up. So everyone wants to look, presentable when election time comes up. But, Bob, they're going to cast the bread upon the waters and they're setting dangerous, dangerous precedents.
Absolutely.
If you don't agree, don't go.
Yeah. Absolutely, Frank. What you just said about the precedent, this should be a signal to all people, regardless of their persuasion, that if they don't like something or that they perceive they don't like what they think someone stands for, then all they have to do is threaten and they can have it canceled. This is mobocracy in the making. I thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Bob.
Father, having lived in Cuba has to do with anything, I don't know. Why that should give him a leg up. But that just tells you how sick this country is.
Oh,
how wacko those bureaucratic bleeding hearts have made us. I mean, I fail to see really why his grandfather, having lived in Guantanamo, Cuba, has anything to do with it. But apparently, according to the wackos, it does.
Now, is this...
These are the guidelines. These are federal guidelines. These aren't Dade County guidelines.
And how far down...
A statement you made earlier. You supported the American boycott of the Olympics in Russia.
Yeah, I supported the boycott, and I would advise anybody who didn't want the Springboks to play to boycott. You see, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm delighted. You're doing me a great favor in trying to make the point. boycott, yes. Cancellation, no.
Yes, but that didn't...
The mistake you're making, and it's obvious that you're laboring under a tremendous handicap, and I appreciate that. But the fact is, when the Soviet Union, another nation, wants our Olympic team to go there, we have a right not to send our Olympic team.
All right.
If a rugby team is playing in the United States, and it's not an Olympic contest, it's not anything at all other than a rugby match, to have a governor cancel it because some thugs might act up is giving in to extortion.
I wouldn't think that Africa has forces in Angola. So in the same vein as Russia had forces in Afghanistan, it could be used from that point of view because there's a great similarity there. Right?
I don't see a similarity at all. In the case of one, there was an invasion of a country. In the case of another, there was an incursion into a country which had been causing problems. And after the military operation was concluded, the nation withdrew.
But they claim there are still forces there right now.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope they topple that Angola Marxist government. How does that grab you? By the way, where are you from, sir?
I'm from Jamaica.
I see. I thank you, sir.
Bob, that Afghanistan was invaded by the British in 1846. They razed Kabul to the ground and slaughtered thousands and thousands of Afghans.
What does that have to do with anything?
And one of the reasons that Afghanistan exists is due to the treaty between Russia at that time and England at that time.
What does this have to do with anything?
No, I'm just saying that the American people should be made to be aware that this anti-Soviet hysteria has swept...
American people aren't interested in history. And are you? You're interested in propaganda.
No, I'm not. I the date of this right now. There should be about...
Hysteria? I don't see... Where's the hysteria?
Well, I'm saying we're in a struggle with the Soviet Union. We've been in one since 1917, and we're going to probably continue to be in one for the next century. So rather than being unbalanced about it, let's fight. Let's be in the struggle, but let's not get all. Let's not have the pendulum swing back and forth like schizophrenics every 5 or 6 years.
All right, we'll stay calm. Everybody be very calm. Say after me, I hate the Soviet Union and everything communism stands for.
Well, I'll tell you something,
But
Bob.
be very calm. Don't get excited.
Bob.
Get off the phone, you lunkhead.
The chemical bombs that the Russians have allegedly dropped, killing 30,000 people, where this chemical ruptures their blood vessels, and as a result, they drown in their own blood. He reminded people how many Americans remember when a country was dropping Agent Orange in Vietnam. And as far as what I know about Agent Orange, I understood it to be a defoliant. I didn't understand it to be something that was dropped to kill people in their tracks. Now, I know that the result has been that there's a possible link to cancer, but I don't think that the intent of Agent Orange was to kill people or rupture their blood vessels, and I plead total ignorance and want to know what you know about this, and did he make a fair comparison?
Well, Agent Orange is, as you correctly say, a defoliant. It is not an anti-personnel chemical. Agent Orange has been implicated by some GIs as having caused some problems that they have. But doctors have not agreed on this. There are just as many, if not more, doctors. Matter of fact, by actual count, more medical people say that no connection has been shown between some of the incidents of the leukemia that has been reported and Agent Orange. If Agent Orange is responsible, then of course it's a great tragedy. But the fact of the matter is, it was not intended to harm people. It was intended, rather, to save American lives by defoliating the thick jungle that the Viet Cong were using to kill Americans and to frustrate our efforts to bring about a solution in Vietnam. I don't care to comment about anybody who feels it incumbent upon himself to make what I consider to be an outrageously anti-American, invidious comparison.
May I? My opinion is that every time the Russians do something which is outrageous, which one has to agree, that let's say that Jack Anderson is correct, that 30,000 people have indeed been killed intentionally in Afghanistan,
Yeah.
in Laos. If he's correct that this was dropped intentionally and knowingly, caused the blood vessels to rupture,
Yes.
then I have to say that it's an outrage that a person like this is allowed to make a comparison between what they do and
About how the UN has annoyed you for a long time, and one of the reasons is the great hypocrisy. If you are a member of the Arab bloc, with rare exception, you can do no wrong. You can do no wrong. And since Iraq is, it can do no wrong. The third world is all for them.
well,
And don't forget, what's the difference when you have someone like Kurt Waldheim as the Secretary General, who is confidently looking forward to a fourth term?
I just read that. He's looking for...
Remember way back when we celebrated historical events?
Yes.
Now we're celebrating Attica uprisings. They sort of prodded them into making a demonstration.
There was only one thing wrong with what happened at Attica in 1971, September of that year.
Yeah, not enough of them were.
That's right. They didn't kill enough of those skunks. Right. You're absolutely right. Listen, I tell you what, let me hear you say, get Gaddafi, when I say, your influence counts. Use it.
Get Gaddafi.
Not walk out of your street. I have two sons who are law enforcement officers. They're very sensitive, intelligent, well-educated young men, and they're getting to the point now where they say, if my life is going to be worth 3 years in jail with pool tables and television sets, we're sorely tempted to be quick on that trigger, because a law enforcement officer's life is worth dirt, according to Prince Hugh. I haven't got words that can describe the monstrosity of that man. When he turned loose one William Quinn, who was the killer of William Quinn, several weeks after he promised he was going to have people in jail, as you mentioned, for the rest of their life, for a political deal, then where do we go? Where do we go?
I'm opposed to women police officers, but I must say they're quicker on the trigger. If you've noticed, all around the country, there are more cases of women cops shooting suspects, and in some cases, innocent people. So maybe put more women on the force, since they seem to be trigger happy.
Well, we get capital punishment in the street if we don't get it under due process of law. Somebody ought to inform Mr. Carey, with his limited intelligence or limited integrity, that we do have capital punishment right now. Only the point is the wrong people are being killed and the wrong people are exercising the capital punishment.
Speaking of being an insane asylum, did you see where the Urban Development Corporation said that they won't be able to fill a 20% minority contractor quota on that multi-billion-dollar Battery Park City project? And you know why? Because all available minority firms will soon be working to capacity on other jobs around the city. And that includes two mammoth UDC projects. I think one is the Portman Hotel in Times Square, and the other, I believe, well, it must be the New York City Convention Center.
Then we'll have to convert minorities to non-minorities to minorities.
Or
yes,
the ultimate, and I'm sure some of these bird brains have already thought about it, hold off the building of that much-needed construction until one of the, either A, one of the firms is free, or B, they train new ones. Anyway, they let him out. They let him out just a few doors from where the McIntosh family lives. Isn't that obscene? As a lengthy story that was carried in the record, it's just sickening, just absolutely sick. I don't know, it's insane. I guess I'm the only one, though, in the media who really gets excited about this. Maybe one of these days I'll get smart and stop caring.
Welfare, food stamps.
Welfare, food stamps. Welfare and food stamps, I'm sorry to tell you, will not be cut out entirely.
No, they're going to...
But a program that has only been in place a few short years... Mm-hmm. Are you listening to me?
Yes, Dad.
No, you're not listening to me, not at all. While I'm talking, you go, See, I don't understand people like that. They call, they don't like what I've said. They say, oh, you've disappointed me. I have never masqueraded as a permissive liberal. I've never pretended that I had some half-baked notion that somehow or other we could keep taxing the working people and spending on the dolts.
Hello?
Yes.
Mr. Grant?
Yes.
How are you?
How am I?
Yes.
Is that really why you called?
No.
Is this a personal call? Because I'll give you my number at home and you can call me tonight and we'll have a little personal conversation.
Okay, no, I called.
The Moonies were all over Mr. Reagan's office. It's known, it's been documented, they've been
The
photographed.
Moonies
That's
were
right.
all over
The
Mr.
Moonies
Reagan.
were in every D'Amato and Reagan office, and I happen to be a conservative.
You're no conservative. You're absolutely
I'm
nothing.
a-
You're daft. You're on WMCA. They were all over the office.
Hello, Bob.
I tell you, I gotta find something else to do. That's all. I can't. I really can't handle this anymore. Hello. That kicks things in the head for today, and I'll till tomorrow. This is Bob Grant reminding you: your influence counts. Use it. Get Gaddafi.